again, everyone. It's time for our next chat, and it's going to be hosted by Elliotte Friedman here. Don't let his mustache deceive you. That is him. By the way, you can go donate for Movember, movember.com/donate. Show his mustache and many others some love. So Elliotte Friedman, you know from Hockey Night in Canada, and he is going to be in conversation with the GM of the Toronto Argos. He won the Grey Cup 4 times with them, some as a player, some in management. He's a CFL Hall of Famer, and he's one of the happiest guys around. So it's Elliotte Friedman and Pinball Clemons.
Thank you, Caroline. Appreciate it. Okay, so Caroline just said you're one of the happiest guys around. That was, she actually stole my thunder. That was my first question this is the question I've always wanted to ask you. What makes you mad?
Oh.
Like, what makes Pinball Clemons mad? Look at that smile.
Well,
what makes that smile come off your face?
Easy answer, actually. It is injustice.
Okay.
When I grew up to a single parent in Florida, and my mom was 18 when she had me, and she grew up, she went to an all-segregated high school. So if you can imagine, if she had me at 18 years old and she went to an all-segregated high school, I didn't go to a segregated school, but there were a lot of racial tensions. I remember in grade 6 writing a poem that said, "Stand up, boy, you don't sit there. You know you stand up, not sit in a chair. Hey, Blackie, I got some water. Do you want some? Oh, I forgot. They don't drink water where you come from. Downrated, segregated, discriminated by others, we're hated because of our skin, not what's within." Now, I didn't write that poem because I don't remember, I should say, because I have a good memory. I remember it because it hurt. And in saying that, I wouldn't trade my upbringing with anybody. And so I don't want you to get this idea of hardship and some sort of remorse, or I don't have that at all. My mom was amazing. She prioritized education, and I really did have a soft pillow and a blanket as I grew up. I wouldn't trade my upbringing with anybody in the room, but I did feel that sting of feeling less than, unworthy, that somehow your life wasn't as meaningful as. And so that part of it doesn't strain me so much as it provides empathy. Right, and so I'm not saying that my life was so tough, or I just don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that. My mom was amazing and gave me a tremendous opportunity and leg up by prioritizing education. I could always run, right? When I was 8 years old, she took me to register for football, and they said I was going to be too small, and she says, "You don't know this boy. Just give him his equipment and let him play. I don't care if he just runs up and down the sideline. You got too much nervous energy. We need to do something with this," right? And by the time I was 11 years old, I had my jersey retired in a local restaurant, so I could always run. But she prioritized education. Not only that, I had a wonderful father figure. He wasn't there necessarily, but he was a father figure to many who didn't have fathers. So my dad was the first in his family to graduate from university. And so my own upbringing wasn't, while we were surrounded by all of the things, she helped me to navigate those things. I didn't really have a challenge in that construct, but it does bother me. Injustice, and again, I think injustice is something that we look at in our own eyes. Injustice as a whole is obviously a terrible thing, but because of my experiences, some things that I feel are unjust, other people don't necessarily see the same way, and I can respect that, but it still doesn't mean that it doesn't tickle me.
I understand.
In the wrong way.
And now there's lots of follow-ups from that kind of question and your answer. And here's what I want to go with. You have always transitioned well in your life. As you mentioned, when you were young, you were introduced to football. People told you were too small. You did okay, not bad. But if you take a look at it, you grew up in Florida. You went to college in Virginia. You briefly played in the National Football League. You came to Canada. You made a career out of that. You retired as a player. One of the most difficult transitions anybody can make is from player to professional career. You have now succeeded in business and philanthropy as a professional in the football business after a player. And you've always been optimistic. I think if you ask people about Pinball Clemons, and you heard his answer there about injustice, that no matter what he feels, he always projects an air of optimism. There's a young group of people here who want to go into, who are going to follow a dream. They're here because they want to learn. How have you always transitioned well? What advice would you give them about keeping your optimism with challenges?
Success, Churchill said, success is not final and failure is not fatal. Let me say that again. Success is not final. When we have early success, sometimes in our lives, we kind of get off to a good start and we get moving, and that success is not final, though, right? It doesn't mean that we're not going to run into challenges. We're going to run into roadblocks, and as a matter of fact, we are guaranteed to. Adversity in life is guaranteed. You know what it means not to have adversity? It means you're dead. Yeah. So it's better than the alternative. So we are going to experience adversity. It's not whether or not you have adversity, but how you deal with adversity that's going to determine your success. A huge part of success and a huge part of happiness itself is not so much responsibility. And I think there is a level of responsibility here in this, right? But it's respondability. How you respond to what happens to you. Guy pulls you off or cuts in front of you, right, when you're on the highway. Do you, I mean, do you lay on the horn, right? Or do you kind of, so there are levels to this, right? The first level, it says, I'm not going to let him ruin my day. And so I just try to deal with it and not respond to it. The more mature approach is this. The more mature approach says, if you haven't cut somebody off before, you just haven't driven long enough. It's going to happen, right? Yeah, I've been there before. And let's keep moving.
I bet you're a really aggressive driver, too.
I like to drive. Yes. And I actually drive too much like I ran. I do pride myself on being a defensive offensive driver, right? So I'm watching the person in front of me, and I often bail them out, right? But part of the reason they need to be bailed out is because any police in the house? Yes, I'm pretty quick. But I do want to say this in addition.
Yep.
When we talk about, how do you have success, right? That transition, a big part of it is planning, right? Planning takes a lot of the worry, a lot of the anguish out. So when I was in high school, when I started high school, I was about 5'2" and 135 pounds. I was a good player, right? But it's not a college football player, right? And I grew, though, to 5'5" and 155 pounds, right? So I was strapping, right? I was this guy. And my mom was so concerned because I worked so hard in school and things had gone really well. I was a first-team all-state player in Florida in football. I was actually I made a team of the best 11 players in soccer, too, right? So did those things. But with my size, she was like, she was so afraid because education was so important to her that I wouldn't get a scholarship. I wouldn't be able to go on to school. And so what I did is I wrote a business plan, right, to show her that in 5 years I would be further along. If I did a lawn service, I would be further along than those who went to university. And that's normal because, it takes 4 years and they're just starting. But I also did it in 10 years and showed how in 10 years I would be ahead and I would have more freedom. And that sort of kind of calmed her a bit, right? But after I did get a scholarship, I wrote a 30-year plan for my life.
30
right?
years?
30 years. So the very first summer, I was able to intern at a company called Honeywell, and they were going to pay for me to get my MBA. And so I had this 10-year plan where, first of all, I was going to work for Honeywell, get my MBA, and really focus on how to run a business, right? And during that time, sort of think about what business would I like to run? And then after that point, after I gave them my youth and they gave me wisdom, I was going to run my own company for the next 10 years. And then the next 10 years, right? So broad strokes, I mean, not a real detailed summary. The next 10 years would mean that I would look at transitioning the business to a partner or a family member, and I want to go back to school and teach and coach. And so that would be the third 10 years. And then after that, maybe there was an opportunity to go back to private sector or continue to teach or even do something else in the public sector, maybe run for office or something. So I made this 30-year plan when I was 19 or 20 years old. And it went a whole lot different from that, right? But I had an idea. I had something that I was thinking about, thinking forward, and when I had the situation of taking over the team, I was playing one week, and I became the head coach the next week. Like literally, not a player coach. I was the head coach the next week. I wouldn't recommend it. Right. Yeah, it worked out all right, but I wouldn't recommend it. But the very first thing there is I've often said, if you're the smartest person in the room, it's your own fault, right? If you're the smartest person in the room and you're a leader, it's your own fault. Your job is to surround yourself with excellence. Surround yourself with people who are there to help to build you and to make you better. You may be better at something, but you shouldn't be better at everything. And if you are the best at everything, it means you don't have enough talent around you. And so with that, in those situations, right? Don't be afraid to surround yourself with good people. A lot of times we're threatened by that because we think that maybe they'll take our job, right? But if you do well, people will know and they will respond to it. And so I have to say that. Having some foresight, having a plan, and the plan's never going to work out just like you wrote it up, right? But having an idea of what you want to do, where you want to go, makes a huge difference.
My grandmother always had a saying. She said, "You plan, God laughs." But at least you have an idea of where you want to go. Now, just out of curiosity, do you still have those? Like, did you keep those plans, or did you lose them along the way?
My wife may have them.
Yeah, so she's got them.
Yeah, so she keeps everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, she may have them. I'm not sure, but she may.
That's awesome, because I would love to see, I would love to see that someday, just to see, what you thought and how close it turned out. Now, Pinball mentioned, I was still working at the Score at the time. He played against Saskatchewan at what was then the Sky Dome and is now Rogers Centre on 1 week, and the next week you were the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts. And that time was a tumultuous time for the Argos. They had a coach by the name of John Heward, and John Heward at his first press conference the year before, the Argonauts' defense had led the league in 20 of 25 categories in the Canadian Football League. And John Heward, at his introductory press conference, they asked him about his defense, and he goes, "It's not that good. I know the stats say that, but I have my own stats that say it wasn't very good." And that day, he lost his team. And the Argonauts started 1-6-1 that year, and things were going really poorly. And then the owner came to you and said, "Can you take over?" And what was it, 4 years later, you were a Grey Cup champion?
I think something like that.
Yeah, so when you take over a situation that's not going very well and you build it into a champion, what were the most important steps that you took to take you from the disarray that the team was in to a champion?
The first thing is we did. I love John Wooden. He's a basketball coach, and he's not a part of everyday vernacular now, but at one time he was just, he was the head basketball coach of UCLA. He wrote this, or he did this pyramid of success, right? And if you haven't seen it before, it's worth the look. He had so many wonderful things that he would say, but one of them was this. He says, "No written word, nor spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's who the teachers are themselves." Let me say that again. "No written word nor spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's who the teachers are themselves." Now, what does that mean to me? The number one determinant of a child's success in the classroom is the teacher who stands at the front of that classroom. It is not their socioeconomic situation. It is not whether or not their parents went to college or university. It is not where they live. None of those things, right? The number one determinant is the teacher who stands at the front of that classroom. That doesn't change for sport, or for that matter, any other organization, right? The person who stands at the front of the classroom is the number one determinant of success. Another very smart coach, Coach Tressman, who was here a couple of years ago, said, don't build a leadership team, build a team of leaders. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Don't build a leadership team, build a team of leaders. On that team was the head coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats,
Orlando Steinauer,
who's going to the Grey Cup this week. Mm-hmm. On that team was Michael O'Shea, mm-hmm. the head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Who are going to the Grey Cup mm-hmm. this week, right? Putting those guys in positions of power rather yes. than disempowering them by the statement you referred to. Putting those young men in positions of power, right? And they had a coach, right, that was smart enough to do that, to give him that ability. And as a matter of fact, before, there was a little, it took a little while. It didn't happen right away. But the night before the Grey Cup, or 2 nights, I guess a couple of nights before the Grey Cup. So the Thursday night is the night that they have the player awards. And if you're going to go out one night, you're at the Grey Cup, right? If you're going to go out one night, that's the night, right? Because the following night is your most important night of rest. 2 days before the game. We call it the day before the day before. What you put in your body today will fuel you for the game. The night before, people think you got the night before, you can't sleep anyway. You're too nervous, right? That whole thing. And it's 2 nights before. You know how you can kind of actually stay up all night and it won't hit you until like late in the day? You can kind of do that because you're going from 2 days ago, right? But it is that 2 nights before that's the most important. So the Thursday night, that's your sweet spot because all the game plan is put in, everything is ready. The next day, we're going to just go out and snap, run through practice. It's real short and sweet because it's the day before, and we get ready to play. Well, I went to get some film after the player awards. The player awards happened on Thursday night, and none of our players got any of the awards that they voted on. A couple of our guys were up for the awards. None got awards. And then I went back and I was... went down to get some film. And when I went down to get the film, it's about 10:30, 10:45 at night. Our entire defense is in the room. Their captains, Orlando Steinauer and Michael O'Shea, the aforementioned, have organized a meeting and they're in watching film. At that point, we had already won the game. On Sunday, we just went out to fulfill all the commercial requirements, right? Yeah, so.
That's a great line.
right? The game was already won.
That's
Yeah,
that's
so-
outstanding. Now, just so you know, we're gonna. Oh, sorry, you got
Good,
some more you
good,
want to
good.
tell?
No,
Okay.
no,
You know, we're gonna take questions in a couple of minutes. Don't be afraid. I'm gonna ask a couple more, and then we'll open up to questions. As Brian Burke will tell you, only reporters ask stupid questions, so don't be afraid to ask anything. Okay. Just of all the players you ever played with or coached,
Yes.
you can tell us. We won't tell anyone.
Okay.
Who was the guy who went out on a Thursday night? You're like, I'm gonna have to worry about this guy on Friday.
You know what? We were very fortunate to have really strong teams with really strong.
You're not going to
coaches.
give this to me, are you?
You know, the reality is, I was one of the other guys, right? So the night before chatter, actually kind of calms down when I come in the area. Like even when I was a player, right? No, Mike don't, yeah. Pinball don't, yeah. And so I didn't know about a lot of the extracurricular activity, if you will, right? But it did take place, and there's some better stories of the age just before me,
Yes.
right? They had some guys in that age just before me. There's some really rich stories there. But I was running around a lot of things, and I do know that we had a couple of guys who were very professional in it, and so maybe I can give you that, right? So there was a guy named Rodney Harding.
He was
and
defensive lineman.
all-time sack leader
Yeah.
still for the Toronto Argonauts, and he would go out and he could he could finish. Right? Yeah. So you see, it's not how you start; it's how you finish. He can finish. He not just start; he could finish. Right? But the interesting thing is that he would go to the facility right afterwards, and he would sit in his car, 2 a.m. He'd sleep there to 6. He'd go shower, right? And he'd be the first guy on the workout. So that was a guy who did that part of it, right? But he also was one of the best professionals on the team, and so he didn't allow it to affect his performance.
All right, you know what? It's funny like that. I don't know if it happens as much anymore, pinball, but and Rodney Harding played in the '80s a lot. I remember I'd go and watch him, but there was a player I worked with, and I'm not going to say who it was, but he told a great story once.
I'm sorry, Rodney.
It's okay. He'll probably laugh. But there was a guy I worked with. He told me one night he was supposed to. He didn't always play, but he got told he was going to play the next day, and it was a city where he had a lot of close friends, and he happened to go out the night before the game, and he ran into his general manager, and the GM looked at him, and it was late, and they were out, and he goes, "You better be great tomorrow," and he said it was probably the best game of his season. So that's playing guilty. It happens. Now, before we open it up to questions, like, people only need to be exposed to you for half an hour like today to get a small piece of who you are and what you are, and you've accomplished a number of great things. You've been a success as a player, a business person, a coach. I know how much your family means to you, and that your personal life and how you take care of people. Of all the things that you or your team has accomplished, because as you said, it's not me, it's we, what makes you the proudest?
The easy reflection is I won the Grey Cup 3 times as a player, and it's a euphoric out-of-body experience. You're pouring perfectly good beverage all over one another, totally nonsensical, right? But in one victory as a coach, I won 40 times. I won for every guy on that team, and so that would be the easy answer, right? But the more accurate answer, though, is actually my family. So my bride and I have been together for 35 years, married for 27 years, and I live to serve her. And I quite enjoy it too, because she's a hottie. And yeah.
Boy, I think we
Not
just had our
only that-
viral moment.
Yes. Not only that, I'm the father of Rachel, Raven, and Riley. Those are our 3 little girls. So if you want to know who I am, playing football is what I did. But who I am is the husband of Diane and the father of Rachel, Raven, and Riley. That would be followed by our work in community. Our foundation has been fortunate enough to build over 200 classrooms in developing countries, and we've also built a few orphanages and water projects, and are building a fully sustainable community in Kenya right now, and we're going to Kenya in December. As well, we have started work in our local community, trying to help young people in our local community go from the margins to mainstream, and that will be our focus going forward. We're about a year and a half in the process, and we have several young people who have gone through a couple of programs, one trades program, where the average household income of the youth we work with is $32,000. They go through a 15-week program. 80% of the kids finish and go into a job making $39,000 a year, already making more than their parents. And so it's a different trajectory. And these are high school graduates, and so kids are 19, 20 years old and already making more than their parents, and working at companies like the major banks and Googles of the world, and so they have a tremendous opportunity there. Another trades program, over 400 young people have gone through this program in 10 years, and all 400 have jobs. And two of the young people who became full-fledged journey persons last year made $92,000 and $96,000 respectively in their first year as full-fledged journey persons, and sounds like one this year is going to make $100,000,
Nice.
six-figure salary in his first year as a full-fledged journey person. So this is real opportunity, real stuff that is changing for the long term. And so let me summarize it this way. If you want to show me a truly great person, don't tell me about records or awards, money or power. If you want to show me a truly great person, show me what that person has done for someone else. Therein lies true greatness.
Well, you've done a lot for a lot of people, and that's true greatness. Congratulations, Pinball. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna let's take a couple questions.
All right, thank you.
Let's take a couple questions. First of all, anybody out there who has a question, like I said, don't be shy. Like, only reporters ask dumb questions, and as you can see, Pinball is very friendly. Unlike Burke, who was snarling at the last panel, Pinball is very friendly. What's your name?
Catherine McLeod. I'm a George Brown student.
Catherine?
So you've talked a lot about what a person shows, who a person is, what they do speaks louder than their records, their title, and that the person standing in front of the classroom is the most important. Being a coach, being a retired athlete, 100% agree, but what is that quality that you find is the most life-changing that teacher, coach, leader could have?
The most important thing is being able to put belief, right? To have people believe in themselves, right? When you talk about all the different things, I mean, we live in such a busy world. There's a poem that I won't recite all of, but it says, the paradox of our time in history is that we have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrow viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy less. A big house and smaller families, more conveniences but less time, more degrees but less sense, more knowledge but less judgment, more experts, more problems. And it goes on and on and on and on, right? And as a part of that, right, when you ask me what is the greatest challenge that I've had in my life, it's the guy that I see in the mirror when I brush my teeth every morning. I am my greatest challenge, right? All the other stuff, it's me, that I am the greatest challenge that I have to overcome. If I can discipline myself, there's a military term, I think, military expression, I believe it is, that says, I count him greater, he who overcomes himself, than he who overcomes his enemies. And when we can deposit belief, when we can encourage young people or old people, right, for that matter, right, and really help them to put them in positions to be successful, right? So that they can explore what they can do rather than what they can't do, right? The whole job of a general manager, right, Burke, is to say, hey, you know, this guy, he can't do this, he can't do this. It's not what he can't do. What can he do, right? We got a guy who was just, you don't want to be timid as a football player, right? I had a guy who was just straight timid, and he was a receiver. Wouldn't go across the middle, right? Couldn't catch the ball across the middle, right? And you look at, and we had all these things like he can't. But what was he? What could he do? He was the fastest guy on our team. Well, why make him go over the middle? Let him run. Right? Not only that, put our best receiver by him. Why? Because if he runs, not only his best thing was actually catching the deep ball. So when he runs, right, he catch the deep ball. And they would have to, right, put more than one person there, right? Because if they just put one guy there, he's gonna run past him, right? And what that did is it created a little bubble. And then we let our best receiver, we just let him run, right? And our best receiver had all of this area to work in now, right? And so many times we deposit negativity into people, right? And negativity is bad, but I want us to understand how bad it is, relatively speaking. Even neutral is negative, okay? Does that make sense to you? Take a person who doesn't do anything wrong all day long, right? They go through the whole day, do nothing wrong. They make it to work on time. They have all of their work done. They don't go to lunch a minute early. They don't get back a minute late. They leave. They do everything just right on point, right? However, during that day, they never let anybody in on the highway on the way to work. They didn't speak to anybody on the elevator. They walked right past the reception. Their work was done but had no additional feedback. You understand what I'm saying? Neutral is negative. It's positive or nothing, right? Does that make sense, right? And so it really is depositing that belief, that positivity into people, I think, that allows them to grow and to be able to stretch. I think we're all capable of much more than we achieve. And it really is giving people that ability to explore what they are, because many times we don't know and understand. We've seen that with many of our teams here, especially our Raptor team, as many of them have grown well beyond their expectations.
That is our time. Pinball, thank you very much.